Paul Warne has some massive decisions on his hands heading into the game after the international break. Derby County made some big signings on deadline day, with Liverpool defender Nat Phillips and Ipswich Town midfielder Marcus Harness joining Derby County and coming to Pride Park to play under Paul Warne in their Sky Bet Championship survival hunt. Now, obviously, Derby County have a ton of players and they're coming off the back of a really good result versus Bristol City. I've reviewed August and I've spoken at length about each game. So if you want to go and check those videos out, they are over on my channel. I've also spoke about the signings of Marcus Harness and Nat Phillips in their own solo videos. So if you want to check them out, make sure you do that as well. But before we get into talking about Paul Warne's major dilemma, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for my latest content by turning on that notification bell so that you get notified every time a new video drops. But should we get into it? So I'm showing you the squad depth chart right here, and this is sort of how we line up on a Saturday, and it's interesting to discuss this fact because obviously this season, yes, Derby County have 9 bench slots in the Championship to make 5 substitutions within the game, but the big conversation now is who are those 9 players on the bench going to be? Obviously, with the additions of Marcus Harness and Nat Phillips and Tawanda Chiwa on loan, they're all going to expect to play. If we go from the game at the weekend, you still had the likes of Blackett Taylor, you had Connor Washington, Marcus Harness, Nat Phillips, Ben Osborne, Kane Wilson, all who were not involved. And you've also then got the likes of Jake Rooney, who is currently out injured, who seems just a few weeks away based on recent Twitter and Instagram posts. Now, if we look at the starting 11, which is on the pitch right now, this is the same 11 that started versus Bristol City. Whether it's the best 11 or not can be discussed in the comments. If you want to put your best 11 down there, we can discuss it. And I personally am not too far against this. I think Osborne should be in there somewhere. I think he's probably the best player at the club. Obviously, reputation based and things like that. He spent a lot of time in the Premier League, a lot of time at the top end of the Championship. So I do think at the moment Ben Osborne is probably that best player in the club, and I think you have to find a place for him. Well, obviously, whether that bench or in the starting 11, I think he's got to be involved. So you then look at the starting 11, you've got Zetterstrom, Elder on the left, Nyombe on the right, 2 centre-halves of Cashin and Nelson, Adams and Ozo as the sitters, with Mendes, Lang, Kenzo and Jackson as that trio in behind Jerry Yates. Now, if you look at the bench on the left-hand side, you will notice that obviously there's too many players there. You've obviously got Wilson over on the right-hand side in that doubt section because obviously coming away from the international break. Will he be back in training or not? We do not know as of yet. But if you're looking at that bench, like Marcus Harness and Nat Phillips are going to get onto the bench. I personally think it'll be Barkhazen and like Washington or something, or Bradley to drop out, something along them lines. But it's obviously going to be an interesting one to keep up with because I think on a 9-man bench, you need your keeper, obviously. I think you need a fullback, a centre-half, a couple of central midfielders, which puts you on, is that 5? Couple of central midfielders, which puts you on 5, a 10, a winger, and at least a 9. I think you can probably get 2 9s if you think about it. So keeper 1, fullback 2, centre half 1. So there's 3. 2 central midfielders. There's 5. Go with a 10. There's 6. A winger. There's 7. A 9. Sorry. That puts you on 8. So you probably get 2 strikers on the bench. So my ideal bench, if we do just I'll put together my ideal bench and I'll come back to you. Nice. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL Championship and League One content heading your way across the course of this season. Let me know your thoughts on what we're discussing in this video down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next part of this video. So, obviously, with the potential of Wilson being out, this is what I've put together as sort of like my ideal bench heading into the next game. Obviously, Blackett Taylor returning and things like that, he should be available. So my bench would be Vickers, Forsyth, Osborne, Thompson, Phillips, Blackett-Taylor, Marcus Harness, Dejan Brown and James Collins. Now, that leaves Joe Ward, Sonny Bradley, Connor Washington, Tawanda Chiwa and Tom Barkhazen out of the squad. And I'm not saying that won't happen, but I do think that Joe Ward will be kept involved. But I don't know what position he sacrifices. Does he sacrifice taking a Collins to take a Joe Ward? Does he sacrifice a Blackett-Taylor for a Joe Ward? Because I think your mainstays are going to be your Forsyth and Phillips. Because Forsyth can play anywhere. Well, he can play on the left, in centre half. Phillips can play in the middle. It could even be a case of Forsyth gets dropped out for Joe Ward because you've got Osborne there who can play on the left if need be. So it's a very interesting one. And obviously this dilemma which Paul Warne has isn't going to last forever because we're going to pick up injuries. We'll pick up suspensions and things like that. Obviously already this season we lost Cashin and Wilson in the same game. So it will happen. But then if you add Rooney into that equation, you can then have 6 what you consider first team players not involved. Well, 7 really, if you count Wilson as well. Now, I think when we get to sort of those periods where we're talking about players being missing and things like that, I can't see a world where Kane Wilson isn't in the squad if he's fit, in my opinion. I think Kane Wilson's one of our better players, one of our more effective players. And the reason behind keeping Dejan Brown is because they believe he's good enough, one, and we didn't get in another number 9. So I can't see us only taking one number 9 on the bench. I can't see us just taking a James Collins. And this is where it gets really, really difficult for Paul Warne. And obviously, he's got a group of staff watching these players every day when they train, watching how they eat, watching their performances, not just in games, but also in training. Watching attitudes, body languages and things like that. So he's going to have help making these decisions. Now, me just sitting here talking through it right now, I just see how much of a difficult decision Paul Warne is going to have for that home game against Bristol City on September 14th. And when you've got, hopefully we don't pick up no injuries over the international break. I think Ibu Adams is on internationals. Mendes Lang, I think he's on internationals. Is anybody else on internationals? I'm not 100% sure, to be completely honest. Chiwa, I think he'll be on internationals as well. So, as long as we don't get any injuries, right, Paul Warne could have the decision between, So you've got 20 players with a bench, 26 players with Kane Wilson if he's fit and ready. And he's got 26 players to fit 20 squad slots. He's got a starting 11 to build. And I personally think he'll stick with the same 11 from the Bristol City game because of the performance. As long as everybody's fit, that'll be the starting 11. Now, the bench is the biggest problem. It really is, because obviously you've brought in Nat Phillips, who comes with a reputation. We've seen what he's done on the biggest stage for Liverpool. You've brought in Marcus Harness, who was impactful as a squad player for Ipswich Town last year. So it's one of those where... And how is he going to see Marcus Harness? Is he going to see him as a wide player? Is he going to see him as a midfielder, a number 10 or a number 8? These are things which are all questions which are yet to be answered. We'll get the answers over sort of, well, in a week or so when we get towards that game versus Cardiff City. And it's going to be really interesting to hear Paul Warne's press conference heading into that game, because this is probably the first time in Paul Warne's Derby County career where he's going to have a squad of 26 players, 27 if you include Rooney, but I don't think Rooney will be available for the Cardiff game anyway. If you include Rooney though, 27 players for 20 slots. And it's going to be interesting to see what decision he does go with. It's going to be interesting to see the bench for that home game versus Cardiff City. And let me know your thoughts down in the comments, because they've obviously brought in Nat Phillips and Marcus Harness to add quality to the squad. They won't get straight into the starting 11. No way, in my opinion. Because you can't disrupt what we did in the last game. In my personal opinion. A lot of people may disagree, but that's just my take. But then you've also got are they really going to leave Tawanda Chiwa out when they brought him in on loan? Is Blackett Taylor even going to be ready? Like, the big question is Blackett Taylor going to be ready for the Cardiff City game? We don't know. There's not a great deal of information about why he's been out or things or anything to do with that. And hopefully he's back and available, because he's the first player we spent a transfer fee on in, 3 years. And it's going to be a big problem if that ends up being... Well, it won't be a big problem if it's a fail. It was only £300,000, but it's one of those where you want it to work, and it hasn't so far. So I really want him to get fit so we can see him actually play and be at this championship level where he's going to get the opportunity to drive at players and going to get a bit more time. But this is where the signing of Chiwa then becomes a big conversational topic, because based on what I've selected, this is with Kane Wilson being out, Chiwa doesn't get in to the 20. And if you've bought a player in on loan, you're going to hope they get into the 20. Now, is it going to be a case of he does only take one striker and takes an extra midfielder in Chiwa or Barkhazen? Obviously, it's sort of a big question for the likes of Barkhazen, the likes of Tawanda Chiwa, Joe Ward, Sonny Bradley, Connor Washington. They've got to break into this squad now. Realistically, it's going to take injuries, because I don't think... There's not much that you'd change from this, I don't think. It's going to take injuries for players to come in. And I don't want to see injuries. And we're going to see them. It happens all the time. We've obviously got 3 games in September. We're going to preview them in a couple of days. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Now, this decision Paul Warne has got to make is going to be... It's going to be an awful one. It's going to be an awkward one. It's going to be a difficult one. You know it. I know it. Paul Warne knows it. And so do his coaching staff. The players know too that they're now battling 26 other players. Well, 25 if we're... Well, 24 if Wilson's out and Rooney's out. But on the grand scheme of things, if Rooney's back after the internationals, Wilson's back after the internationals, you've got 26 other players to compete for your space in the 20. Now, there's only 6 that are going to miss out. 7 if Rooney's available. And it's going to be interesting to see who those are. I think Rooney will go and spend some time with the 21s, if I'm completely honest. And I think he'll end up going out on loan in January. I think when you look at the likes of Kane Wilson, you look at the likes of Joe Ward, I think one of those right-sided defenders is going to end up being moved on in January. Obviously, Wilson, I think his contract expires at the end of this season. Personally wouldn't want to see him go, so it's going to be a question of is Joe Ward going to be about? He's got 2 years left on his deal. I quite like Joe Ward. I think he has a bit about him, but I just don't think he's a right back. I think he'd be much better further forward, but then you look at where's he going to fit in. You've got Jackson, you've got Harnish, you've got Blackett Taylor, you've got Mendes Lang, you've got Wilson who can play there as well, you've got Chiwa who can play there, you've got Barkhazen who can play there. So it becomes that big conversation topic of where does he fit? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you in my next video. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.